Hello and welcome back to my channel. Sometimes we do spooky stories and sometimes we do cosplay and sometimes we talk about atheist witchery, and today is going to be one of those days. I've done 2 videos like this already, so maybe watch those videos first so that way I'll shed a little bit of light on what we're going to talk about today. Something that I wasn't very clear about in those videos is that the term atheism is extremely broad, and it's actually just a label. So I think there's probably almost as many definitions for atheism as there are atheists. My label, personally, is that my threshold for belief is that it has to have testable proof. Can back it up with the scientific method, then that is my threshold for belief. I think a lot of people describe their atheism as, if a deity comes down out of the clouds and says to me, like, I'm real, like, pinch me, I'm here. Eyewitness is probably the worst proof that you can have, so that would probably not reach my threshold for belief. I would probably just check myself into a hospital, probably. There are a lot of people who will double label and they will call themselves spiritual atheists. Spiritual is another very, very broad term that really you can define any way that you want. A popular definition is that, when you go out into nature, it gives you awe, and that awe is comparable to the feeling that one might get from their deity. I don't know if that's fair. I don't know of anybody that looks at the stars in the night sky and doesn't feel awe. I don't really say that I'm a spiritual atheist. I just, say that I'm an atheist, and then, if you ask me whether or not I feel awe, I can be like, well, yeah, of course. I go out into nature and I feel tons of awe, just like every other human that I've met. Go and find me that atheist and put them in front of the Grand Canyon and they're like, meh. I don't know if that's a person that exists. So let's get back to the question. Can an atheist read tarot cards without feeling like a sham atheist because they're doing something supernatural, or they feel like a sham tarot card reader because they are skeptical and don't believe that the cards are supernatural? Can you read cards without that supernatural aspect? Now remember, I already laid out, you commenters, so if you're an atheist that believes in the supernatural, that's totally fine. You are still an atheist, that's your label, but we're not talking about you right now, so you have to just go and watch some other video, I guess. But can you be an atheist who doesn't believe in the supernatural and still read cards without being some kind of scam? Short answer, I think yes. So I have my cards right here. I wrap them in a silk scarf for practical reasons because it keeps them clean and secure, and scarves are pretty. If you did believe in supernatural things, then you would say that the silk blocks all the bad juju, but for me it just blocks all the dirt and dust. And plus, it just makes them feel special when they're wrapped up in silk. And of course, my silk scarf is a galaxy print, so it looks like outer space. Okay, so this is my tarot deck. This is the Enchanted deck. I got this when I was in high school, and I got it from Barnes & Noble. I didn't know anything about tarot card reading. I just thought they were really cool, and that was peak witchy curiosity for me. I was not an atheist. I was very much a Christian at the time. And I just thought that the cards were beautiful and spooky, and the whole idea of gaining wisdom from this unseen world behind the veil was very intriguing to me. Okay, so big deck. There are 78 cards in this deck. Some of them are face cards that are divided up between the 4 suits. Some of them are just number cards divided up between the 4 suits. And 22 of them are major arcana cards. Okay, so no matter what kind of card it is associated with a elaborate story and meaning. Usually there's some layered meaning in the card, which kind of goes back to that whole cold reading of, well, if the first meaning doesn't work for your situation, then maybe the second meaning will work for your situation. It's that old horoscope thing where it's really broad enough that it will always kind of fit with what you need it to fit with. I don't think that's dishonest. I think that's just helpful for what we're doing. I think it just makes sense. If I'm reading cards for someone, I usually shuffle the cards, I'll have them hold the cards, and I'll have them think about the situation that's sort of in the front of their mind, something maybe that's troubling them. And it's just a good time for them to reflect on issues. When you're reflecting on yourself in the presence of someone else, that can feel really supportive. You know, they might feel very seen. They might feel validated just by holding the cards and thinking about their current situation. Usually I'll lay them out on the table and the person will pull out the cards at random, and then we'll sort of set them up in a formation of some kind. And then I'll turn the cards over. And I try not to cold read, but honestly, like, it's sort of a knee-jerk reaction to cold read, because cold reading just means that I'm going to give information, and then that information is going to turn and weave depending on the reaction that I get from the person I'm reading cards for. You know, and if I read the meaning of a card and they go immediately like, oh yeah, and this really fits with something that's going on in my life right now, like, and the next card doesn't get that reaction, then my impulse is to sort of lean into that card that really fit the bill. So I have to kind of try hard not to do that and to treat the cards all very equally. And then we sort of go card by card, and the person talks about, you know, the situation, and I tell them what the cards mean and the stories behind the cards. And then we just kind of try to puzzle piece together if there's any helpful advice or information in the cards. Yeah, I was going to show you a card. Okay, so this is like the Three of Hearts. And the Three of Hearts is about friendship. Hearts in general is usually about friendship and colleagues and family and relationships. I told you, it's really broad, just like horoscopes. And you can see the three women here finding comfort with your friends. Maybe you haven't been spending enough time with your friends and you need to like reach out to them and contact them. That can pretty much work for everybody that I've ever met. So, you know, maybe in that person's situation, they hadn't considered, you know, maybe the effect that their situation was having on the person's friends, or maybe they'd never considered that their friends could be helpful. A lot of these cards, the message is you're not alone, you know, find guidance, find help from the people around you, get support. And I think people have a really hard time asking for help. And so if card reading can be a little push to be like, you know, it's okay. You know, you have lots of friends and family that might want to help you. Like, go out and get the help. Like, if the cards can be a push to do that, then I don't think that that's a bad thing. The other card that I drew out was Strength. So there's a woman here. She has a pet tiger or lion. She has an infinity symbol over her head. It's a very beautiful card. It's a major arcana, so it's supposed to be very powerful and very influential. And it often will mean something along the lines of, you know, you have inner strength that you may not be aware of, that you might take for granted. Maybe you have been through things in your life that have made you tough and resilient. You can take on this challenge with your inner strength. So it's just a very nice, affirming card. So something else about tarot cards, just like there are as many definitions of atheism as there are atheists, there are as many stories for cards as there are tarot card readers. So everyone's deck is very personal. There are lots of different kinds of decks. You will sort of evolve stories for your cards that may not go along exactly with other people's experiences with their cards. So your meanings might be a little different. Even if you do not believe in supernatural elements for the cards, what are some positives that we can get from cards? We can get a one-on-one conversation with another person about something that's bothering us. And definitely, I think that we can get a whole nother perspective on our problem. Because if you're pulling a random card and then you're like, how does that fit in with my issue? Then those gears are turning in your brain. And you might fall into a solution or a perspective that that you had not prepared. Any way to get a new perspective, I think, is very helpful. Okay, now that's the positives. So what are some negatives about tarot card reading? Well, some people believe that tarot cards are like an evil power, evil entity. So you may have friends that might have a negative response to tarot card reading, that you're inviting, negative energies and things like that into your home. But that is a whole slew of superstitious things. And honestly, if they believe that, that's kind of on them. And I don't think that that should affect you and your opinions on things. But a big negative thing to watch out for is that people do use tarot cards to make those personal connections with people, and then use that personal connection to take advantage of that person. They will find out about you, and then they will use that information to manipulate you into giving them more money or more attention or whatever negative thing that they're after. And that is very unfortunate. But I do not think that that is something that is just seen with tarot card readers. That's something that you can find. Yeah, I think people just suck sometimes. Sorry. Okay, so that brings me to my next point. There's a YouTuber by the name of Jessi Huntenbur. She has a YouTube channel, and she talks a lot about witchy content. She actually used to be an atheist, but now she believes in the supernatural. So she has a great perspective on a lot of this stuff because she has that atheist experience. She just put out a video about being careful and not falling prey to scammers in the tarot card and medium communities. She does not claim to be clairvoyant or a medium. She did a great video on red flags when you're finding somebody to read tarot cards for you. And I know one of the red flags that she hit on was cold reading techniques, which we talked about, I think. Cold reading is when you just keep kind of peppering out information until you get that reaction that you're after. And then once you have the reaction, then you sort of hone in on that reaction. It's a manipulative technique. So if you're reading cards, you have to be careful not to accidentally cold read. If you are having your cards read, be very aware of these cold reading techniques. Like, is the person reading your cards kind of waiting for those responses, and are they feeding into those responses? And are they starting with very broad ideas and then narrowing them in as they get responses from you? Or are they starting out with clear, specific answers? And then the more disgusting thing that you have to watch out for is hot reading, where the person will actually find your information. And now all of your information is on the internet, it makes it very easy. So they might peruse your Facebook page, they might find your family members' Facebook pages, and they're going to learn everything they can about you before you sit down. Like, if they're just harvesting information about you, like, that's pretty scammy. If this is something that's interesting to you, John Oliver just did a piece about catching mediums in the act of being scammers. I think mediums is something that is very controversial. They deal with people who have been dealing with loss, and I think it's so manipulative to take advantage of somebody who's grieving and then to use that to make money. Like, that's pretty gross. And I am a very skeptical atheist, so I do not believe it is possible to talk to the dead at all. I think that all mediums are kind of scammy. They're either scammy or they're kind of nutty. Ooh, I'm gonna get in trouble for saying that on the internet. Look, I'm not talking about, your grandma visiting you in your dreams and telling you to live your best life. Like, that's pure. That's beautiful. I'm talking about somebody that's gonna call you and, try to get you to pay money to talk to your dead grandma. Like, that's just rude. Also, there was a New York Times article that I found because of the Friendly Atheist, and it was fantastic. There was a group of skeptics that had somebody, a third party, create social media profiles for them. So these folks hadn't seen the social media profiles at all. And then they go get these VIP tickets to a medium show. And then, of course, because they're VIPs, they get read, and the person doing the reading just hits on all this information that they got off the internet that was fake. You might think, oh, well, if they're reading minds, they just read that fake information. But that's why it was a double-blind experiment, and the couple didn't even know any of the fake information while they were sitting there. So it was just pretty clearly, blowing the scammer out of the water, which is always really satisfying to see, because screw them. Holy Kool-Aid made a documentary about it on YouTube, so you can definitely check that out. I'll link that below. So what did we talk about here? Are tarot cards scammy? They could be a tool of a scammer to scam you. But are they inherently scammy? No, I don't think so. You know, they've been around since the Renaissance. They were a parlor game then. They are still an amusing parlor game. Should you make life decisions based off of cards that you pull out of a tarot deck? Heck no. Can you gain some insight about situations that you're in? Maybe. Could you have fun with your friends? Yes. Maybe you could be more comfortable talking to a tarot card reader than, you know, friends and family about a situation that you have. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go out and do it. I say do it. Don't make it part of your monthly budget. And don't make any big decisions based on tarot cards. I think that's pretty much a given. I think if you're here already that you would not do that. You were just waiting for me to say that anyway. Have you guys ever had your cards read? Do you have any cringy stories of having your cards read poorly? I would love to hear those because I think that would be amusing. Have you ever had really spooky cards read that were really spot on? Do you read cards and you're an atheist? Do the people that you read cards for know that you're an atheist? That's a good one. So just, yeah, comment below. Also, we'll probably tell some more ghost stories. If you're wondering how I can tell ghost stories on here and not be a phony when I don't believe in supernatural things, I think if you skeptically listen to my ghost stories, like they're all like true accounts, like first person accounts, but I still think that there's like explanations for all of the ghost stories that I tell. There's a good explanation for why, you know, people are seeing things or hearing things. So I don't think that goes against anything on this channel. All right, we'll see you later. Bye. Well, that was fun.